Hi, my name is Don Clemmer, and I'm a sales engineer at Parallels. I want to take you through a brief product demonstration of our Parallels remote application server today. We'll start by taking a look at the flexible architecture and our load balancing capabilities. Then we'll publish some applications and look at some of the end-user management functionality. And finally, I want to show you what the end-user experience will look like. So this is the Remote Application Server Administrative Console. It's very intuitive and easy to use. The icons up and down the left-hand side represent the main menu system. If I was to click on Farm, for instance, it would open up a submenu. And if we look under Designer, I get a real-time live view of all the components that are running in our remote application server farm. So in this case, it's a small environment that we're just getting started, but we're already fully redundant. You'll notice I have a pair of terminal servers, or remote desktop servers, which is where it serves up the applications. I've got two secure client gateways, which provide the end-user access into the system. And I also have a pair of redundant publishing agents, which is the remote application server core. So with the two secure client gateways, it provides redundancy, but it also shows two connection points, so two different IP addresses or DNS host names that end users could use to connect. What we'd like to do, though, is maintain the redundancy, but get them down to a single connection points for ease of use. And we can do that through our High Availability Load Balancer, or HALB. Our HALB that is included in the system is simply a virtual appliance that load balances multiple gateways, and it is extremely easy to use. All I have to do is download the virtual appliance, import it into my hypervisor, turn it on, and assign an IP address. And then that's all I have to do to configure that half. And then in the console itself, if I just go into Farm and then HALB, H-A-L-B, I would simply click Enable It, point the system to the load balancer that I just turned on, and then right here, click on the Configure, and tell it which gateways I want it to load balance. And since I only have two, obviously I'd like it to load balance both of them in this instance. I can also have multiple load balancers. So if I want redundant load balancers, I simply add more of them into the system, point to it, and then make use of this virtual IP address right here, which provides a single connection point, and this IP address then is distributed across the other load balancers, and it provides a single connection point, and then I get full round-robin IP-based load balancing of all my gateways, 2, 3, 4, or however many I have installed. Getting back to the flexibility of this system, one of the cool things that we can do actually is that the load balancer is not a required component. If you've already made an investment in a third-party load balancer, such as an F5 or even a Citrix NetScaler, you can use that to load balance our gateways. We don't require you to toss anything out of your environment that you've already got and use and functional and made an investment in that you don't want to. But our HALB, High Availability Load Balancer, is there if you need it. So that's the front-end load balancing. But on the back-end side, we also have terminal server load balancing. So terminal servers are automatically load balanced by resources. And we don't look at just user sessions, but we also look at the memory and CPU utilization so that we can make an intelligent decision about how to distribute the workload among terminal servers. Combined with the front-end high availability load balancer, this provides end-to-end load balancing of the entire remote application server farm. So to get to this point, it literally only takes me perhaps an hour to install this. It's very quick and very easy to get up and running. And I haven't locked myself into any kind of infrastructure or design choices that I will later regret or have to change. If I go back to Farm and Designer, you notice that even though I've got two secure client gateways, if I want to move those components around, it's very easy to do. First of all, the gateway, the terminal server agent, and the publishing agent can all run on a single server. So I can scale down very small for a test dev environment, and then if I need to, I can then scale out into multiple ones of these to move them around. So for the gateways, if I was to simply go here and click on Gateway, very easy, just type in the address of another server that's out there that can take on that role, and we'll push the gateway role out, and you've got a third gateway installed in the system. If I wish to retire one of these gateways because they're on a system that's old or being repurposed, or I just wish to distribute the components separately, I can simply under Farm go here to Gateways, and then I just highlight one of these and then click on this little minus sign right here, and I would remove that from the system. So extremely easy to rebalance the gateways to adjust to your changing business needs. But now that we have our core remote application server farm up and running, let's go ahead and use it. And so the first thing we'll do is we'll publish some applications. And if I go right in here to publishing, You can see that I've already published a few applications out already. But we'll go ahead and add another one simply by clicking on Add. And then it asks what I wish to publish. Now obviously we can publish applications, I can group them via folders. But one of the other really cool things about this product is under Desktop, I can publish a desktop. And not just a terminal server or shared desktop, but I can also publish a VDI desktop as well as a remote PC or physical desktop, which can provide use the RAS or Remote Application Server Farm system to gain access from end users to their workstations that are in the office, for instance, if they're working remotely or traveling. So these are all built in, and we can do this right here. But in this case, let's go ahead and we'll just publish an application using terminal servers. So go to Application and then Terminal Server, and when I click on Next, just go to Installed Applications to make the demo go a little bit easier. And then right here it asks me which servers I wish to publish from. So the default is all the servers on the site. So if all my terminal servers are just clones of each other, I could simply use this selection right here. A cooler way though, and more productive perhaps, would be to group our terminal servers. So I can group them based on product, function, department, different versions of the software. In this case I've got one called Sales Productivity. I'll just pick this group of terminal servers to show me which applications live on that. Or if I've got a very small environment or a very specific, unique terminal server, I could actually cherry pick an individual server. But we'll just pick the group Sales Productivity for this demonstration. Then when I go to Next, what the product is doing now is it's going out and it's examining the terminal servers and to see what exactly is installed on it. And so now I have a list of all the applications that are installed on the terminal server itself. And I see that since I've been saying publish quite a bit, I see Publisher right here in the middle. So I'll just select Microsoft Publisher. Then I simply would go to Next. It confirms what I want to do. Then I'm publishing it from this group, which is these terminal servers, and the application is Microsoft Publisher 2016. Go ahead and click Next and Finish, and it's done. You can see right here there's Publisher. But I made a little bit of a mistake, right? I've grouped these applications into folders, and under Office Apps I have the rest of the Office apps, but Publisher is not on that. It's kind of standalone. I'd really like to group it for my end users. Well, that's extremely easy to do. Just grab and drag Publisher up to the Office Apps folder, and you can see now that it's right here under the Office Apps with all the other applications. So very flexible and easy to use. And I could just click Apply. That'll go ahead and commit the changes. And now Publisher has been delivered to our end users. So now that we've got applications published out, let's look at some of the end user features. And the first one I want to talk about is printing. Printing is always such a contentious and problematic issue in these types of environments. But in Parallels Remote Application Server, we have a universal printing solution. And the really cool thing about this is it mostly pretty much just works right out of the box without you having to do, as an administrator, any really extra configuration at all. What we do is when an end user makes a connection, we just enumerate their local print drivers, whether they're local or on their local network, as long as they're installed on their system. And then when they go to print, we present them back to the end users. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So simply file print, and it goes straight down to their local printer. We just redirect it back. And that works for the vast majority of printers out there. There's not really anything else that you have to do. If you do have those one or two printers that are kind of funny and don't work very well, we have the ability to add specific printer drivers from the client by specifically naming them, and that'll allow us to kind of get around those few printers that are kind of a little weird or shall we say troublesome. Not only is a universal printing solution built into this, but we also have a universal scanning solution, if you'll notice right over here. And universal scanning works very much the same, or very similar, if you will, to universal printing functionality. We simply enumerate the local scanners, and then we redirect and send them back down to the client device. We support both WIA and Twain. Okay, so now that we've got applications published, we've talked about how to print and how to scan, let's take a look at a client manageability feature that is pretty cool. If I go down here to Client Manager, you'll notice that I've got a desktop here that I've got connected, and it's already set to be managed. This is a Windows 10 desktop, which is not all that exciting in terms of, I mean, it's great functionality, but everybody can publish applications to Windows 10. But if I go ahead and right-click here, you'll notice that since I've managed the device, I have the ability to do things such as get information. So I can find out exactly what the hardware configuration is, or the patch levels for Windows 10. I can also shadow it. So I can go down here and click Shadow, and it would allow me to see what the end users are doing. It's a great troubleshooting tool, so you don't have to send somebody out to look at the desktop. I can just troubleshoot very quickly just by going to Shadow. But the other thing that we can do under Properties here is I can lock it down. So under Operating System Settings, I can replace the desktop with the Remote Application Server client device, and I can put it into kiosk mode. And I'll show you this in just a second. But the advantage of this is if I had, say, a client system that was out on a factory floor in a public space, it would simply lock it down, and that would allow us to not have to worry about it. The end users or whoever logs into the system could only get access to the applications. They couldn't reboot it or do anything else that could get them into trouble. So to demonstrate this, let me switch over to a Windows 10 screen. This is Windows 10. I'll go ahead and just log into the system. And as I move in, right here, there's my applications in the folders. So right here, there's my Office apps, and there they are, including Publish that I just put out. But notice there's no way to break out of this. It's a Windows screen. You can see I'm actually running this in a virtual machine, but you can see in a Windows screen there's no way to get out of this and for an end user to do anything. There's no start button to get into trouble. They can't log off. They can't reboot the system. It's truly in kiosk mode, which allows it to stay up and running and be very highly productive in specific environments. Let's take a look at our next type of connectivity feature I wanted to show you, which is this would be the Parallels Remote Application Server HTML5 Gateway. And right here, all I have to do is simply log in, and it's just using a web browser. And there's my applications. The cool thing about this, using the HTML5 connectivity, is there's absolutely no client code whatsoever installed on the system. It's purely contained within the web browser. And you can see in this case, I am on my Mac, and I'm using just the Safari web browser. I don't know about you, but I've had my dog actually come home and get all excited and smash into my desk and knock my laptop into the floor, breaking it, making work very difficult to do. However, if my wife happens to have a Macintosh, right, or any other system, I could log into her Safari browser and get into my applications right here. And if I open up my Office apps, you can see there's Publisher. I've got Microsoft Word here, which I can go ahead and open and launch. And there it is, now I'm in Microsoft Word. And I can type in a few things in here. One of the really neat things is, even though this is completely clientless, if I move up to File and Print, look at that. It's got all my printers that are available on my Mac. So it presented the local printers on my system, and I can print even though it's completely clientless. If I go ahead and minimize this, you can see that I'm on a browser. Just put it down in the tray here, and then I'll open up Microsoft PowerPoint, and I can minimize this. And you can see right down here in the tray, I've got both Word and PowerPoint running. So I can switch back and forth just like I normally would do. Very easy, very powerful system to use. One other last thing that's pretty cool about this is, even though I'm just accessing applications through a web browser and I'm doing it remotely, if I come up here to my user account and click on the name, I can change my password. So if my domain password were to expire, I can go right here and change it, and it makes it very easy. It's kind of hard to do if you think about it. How would I change my password if I'm not using a full desktop? So you end up with expired passwords, you have to call the help desk, it becomes a little irritant to say the least, and we made it really easy right here by just clicking on the change password. Okay, so we've showed the lockdown version in the kiosk mode, and I've also demonstrated the completely clientless HTML5 version. And now let's look at something that's even cooler. So I'll switch over, and this is my iPad. So right here, it's just a regular Apple iPad. And if I just move around, it's got my iPad functionality, but right here I have the Parallels client on it. So if I'm going to a business meeting, for instance, and I need to do some work, you can actually deliver applications to an iOS or a mobile device. So, but a lot of people can do that, but what makes this so unique is not only can I deliver an application to it, but actually do useful work. So if I go ahead and connect to the system, I'll see that right here are my applications. There's my Office apps right here, and everything else that I might need to get used to make productivity. So the first thing is storage. So we can actually just publish a cloud drive if you want, right? It's kind of hard to save files to a mobile device like this, but I can always, of course, do a file share. But I can also publish cloud drives, such as OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever, and then they can save it to the corporate cloud drive or even a personal cloud drive if you wanted to provide that kind of access. If you didn't, you don't have to do it, and you force them to save things wherever you want them to do. But in this case, let's go ahead and look at the Office apps, and I'll launch Excel. I'm heading to an important sales meeting with my boss, and I realized I need to make some changes to the sales data that I was going to put up there in terms of how it presented. But all I've got with me is my iPad, my mobile device. So I'll go ahead and open up the sales revenue here. And in this case, we can really do some work. So it's pretty easy. You can't see what I'm doing with my finger, but if I was just to point my finger at a certain thing, I could highlight it. So I can move it around. That's pretty straightforward. I use my finger as the mouse. You can see we had a pretty good fourth quarter, and I'd like to bring that out, draw attention to that. The problem, though, is making really fine mouse clicks is very tough when you've got a very fat finger, because the mouse requires very precise movements, and my finger is very fat and it's very imprecise. And if I want to highlight this using a different color palette, you can see I've got that little yellow up there as the color palette, but I don't want to make it yellow. This is really cool. I want to make it kind of green and really draw it out. But I don't know if I can access the color palette very easily with my fat finger. But using our remote desktop product, actually, and the client features for our mobility systems, I can. If I was to put my finger right here and hold it, you can see it opened up a magnifying glass, and you can see that little plus button. That's a contextual mouse pointer that allows me to very precisely get up on what I want. And you notice when I moved off the cells back up into the menu system, it switched to a little pointer. So if I go right over here to my color palette, I can actually get that little bitty arrow right next to it. And if I just hold it there, it selects it, and I opened up the color palette. And if I want to choose green, I simply go through the same little thing again. I create and get my magnifying glass, go right up here and pick a nice green hue, let it select, and just like that, I've highlighted and changed that cell green. Hey, look, my sales manager, we had a really great fourth quarter. Notice, notice, notice. I was able to do that. I can also move charts around, so I can use the same functionality right here. I'll just click and hold, and I'll move up onto the chart screen, and you can see how the arrow, the icon, switched over to the drag and drop, and then I can just simply drag and drop a whole graph around. And if I want to make it bigger, I can do the same thing again. There's my magnifying glass. Look how the mouse pointer changes to a resizing little icon, and then I can drag and reshape the size of the whole screen right here. Very easy, very intuitive to use. Okay, but you know what? Now that I've done this, I kind of liked it better originally, right? My sales manager is a numbers guy. I don't want to show him the big graph, even though it does show the big highlight of the fourth quarter. I want to show him the numbers. Well, that's kind of what we're doing here. I've got the ability to change that around using my little menu thing right here on the left side or the right-hand side. So the undo button to undo this, you'll notice, is way up in the top left corner. And even with the magnifying glass, it's hard to get up there. So what I can do, though, is simply click here and then click on a pointer, and then I've got a mouse pointer. And on this screen, it looks like I'm just cheating and using a mouse, but I promise you that I'm pushing the mouse around with my finger. And so I go right up here to where it says the undo, and you notice down at the bottom I've got a left click and a right click mouse button. If I just press that once to left click it, you can see it actually turn gray if you watch closely on the main screen there. And then I press it again, I just undid those two changes. That easy. And I can just click on the little gear icon and unselect that, and I'm back to the standard mouse screen that I was using with my magnifying glass. And this is our magnifying glass, by the way. This isn't something that we're just leveraging off the iOS system here. This is one that we created. This little toolbar on the right-hand side that I was using, by the way, I can get that out of the way, too. I can just click and hold it and drag it up and down to where I want, or if I make a right swipe, it'll completely, it'll go ahead and hide and disappear on me. Okay, so now that we've shown you how to do this, this is a really great little demo, and I thank you for attending today. We walked through kind of the flexible architecture of the system. We talked about load balancing. We talked about user management and publishing applications, how we can do not just applications, but also VDI. And then we finally wrapped up with this very cool end-user experience, looking at a way to lock this system down into kiosk mode, as well as using our completely clientless HTML5 browsing, and the fact that we can also print using any one of these modes, just enumerating the local print drivers and able to print even from here. And finally, the really cool features of making these mobile devices very useful. I'm using this on an iPad, but I could also very easily use it on a phone as well, in which case that magnifying glass would come really handy. So thank you very much for attending today. If you've got any further questions, please visit us on our website at www.parallels.com. And have a great day.